The night my family stood up in front of 40 guests and announced a vacation to celebrate their anniversary, I cried in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Not because I was happy, because when they said the whole family is going to Cabo, I already knew, without a single word being spoken to me directly, that I wasn't included. I was right. My name is Claire Sutton. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my adult life, I was the family's best-kept secret, the one who showed up early, stayed late, asked for nothing, and was quietly, consistently forgotten. But about 3 weeks ago, on the night of my parents' 35th wedding anniversary dinner, something inside me finally snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, the way a wire gives out after being pulled one too many times. If you enjoy real-life family drama and emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Quiet Drama Stories for more powerful, true-to-life narratives. Let me tell you what happened. To understand it, I need to take you back a little further first. I grew up in a brick colonial in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. 4 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, and a mother who kept the hedges trimmed because, she liked to say, your yard tells people who you are. My parents, Gary and Diane Sutton, raised 2 daughters. Me, Claire, the eldest, and my sister Ashley, 3 years younger, who married a corporate defense attorney named Brandon Pierce, drives a white BMW X5, and has 2 kids who wear coordinating outfits to family dinners. And then there's me. I'm a freelance bookkeeper, mostly remote clients, flexible hours, modest income, nothing that impresses anyone at Thanksgiving. My car is a 2013 Toyota Camry with a dent in the rear bumper I've been meaning to fix for 2 years. At family gatherings, my mother introduces Ashley like this. This is my daughter Ashley, and her husband Brandon. He just made partner at Dressler & Klein. She introduces me like this. And this is Claire. She helps out. She helps out. I never realized until recently how much those 3 words had defined my entire role in that family. Here's what helping out actually looks like. Easter. I arrive at 7 a.m. to start the ham, prep the sides, arrange the table with my mother's good china, the set I'm not allowed to eat off of, only to wash. Ashley arrives at noon in a linen blazer, kisses everyone on the cheek, and sits down to be served. Thanksgiving, same story, with a bigger turkey. Birthday parties for my nephew Jake and my niece Lily. I'm the entertainer, the cleanup crew, the backup snack packer. Last spring, I spent 6 hours running Jake's dinosaur party while Ashley got a blowout because she needed a reset. And every single time I even hinted at having a conflict, a client deadline, a doctor's appointment, an actual life, my mother would say it with that tight little smile. Family comes first, Claire. We all make sacrifices, except I was the only one sacrificing anything. The breaking point didn't come all at once. It came in slow drips over the years, until one night it overflowed. 3 years ago, my relationship of 5 years ended. His name was Marcus, and he sat me down one evening and said, very gently, very honestly, Claire, I love you, but you're not really here. It's like you're always waiting for permission to be a full person. I didn't understand what he meant at the time. I drove home that night, cried until I ran out of tears, and then, on a total impulse, walked into a second-hand camera shop I'd never noticed before. There was a Sony mirrorless in the case, used, $220. I bought it with money I probably should have saved. I didn't tell my family. That camera became the only thing in my life that was completely mine. I started photographing people the way I felt, unseen. Women waiting at bus stops in the rain, a cafeteria worker taking her break alone in a stairwell, an elderly woman at a grocery store, staring at a shelf of soup cans, making a decision no one else would ever think twice about. I called the series Invisible Women. I made an anonymous Instagram account, no face, no real name, just the photographs. Over 3 years, I built an audience of 14,000 people who understood exactly what I did, without me ever having to explain it. I never told my family any of it. About 6 weeks before the anniversary dinner, I got an email I almost deleted. It was from a gallery in Sedona, Arizona. Desert Frame Gallery. A man named James Holloway, the owner, wrote that he'd come across my Instagram and wanted to talk about my work. He used the word compelling. He used the phrase solo exhibition. I stared at that email for half an hour. Good things didn't happen to women like me. Did they? I didn't reply. Not yet. There's one person in my family I've always been able to call. Her name is Aunt Vera, my dad's younger sister. And according to my mother, she is the cautionary tale of the Sutton family. Never married. Moved to Santa Fe in her 40s to pursue her pottery. Opened a little ceramic studio and cafe that my mother dismissed as playing house on a trust. And, even though Vera had never received a dime she didn't earn, I had been calling Aunt Vera every Sunday night for 8 years. My mother didn't know. When I told Vera about the gallery email, she went quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Claire, I know James Holloway. I sent him your Instagram link 2 months ago. He's serious. Call him back." I almost dropped the phone. "You did that?" "Someone had to," she said simply. "You deserve this. You've always deserved it." I called James Holloway the next morning. "Now let me tell you about the anniversary dinner. My parents' 35th, a catered event for 40 guests at their house. I took 2 days off from my clients to help set up. I ordered the flowers, hand-addressed the place cards my mother had insisted on, coordinated with the catering company, pressed the tablecloths, and polished the crystal stemware that had been a wedding gift in 1989. The day of the party, I arrived at 7 in the morning in jeans and a ponytail, because there was no point in dressing up when I'd be in the kitchen for the next 8 hours. By 6 p.m., the house looked like something out of a magazine. I'd changed into a simple black dress. Nothing remarkable. My mother walked by me in the hallway on her way to greet the first guests, looked me up and down, and said, "Is that what you're wearing? Try to stay in the background tonight. This is our moment." I nodded. I always nodded. The party was everything she'd wanted. Ashley made her entrance at 7:15, in a deep green wrap dress. Brandon in a tailored suit. The kids like little catalog models. My mother rushed to embrace them. Guests gathered around. I circulated with appetizers. One woman, a church friend of my mother's, reached for a bruschetta, looked at me, and asked, "Are you with the catering company?" Before I could answer, my mother appeared. "Oh, that's Claire, my other daughter. She helps out." The woman smiled politely and turned away. My mother didn't notice. She never noticed. At 9 o'clock, my father stood up and tapped his champagne glass. 40 faces turned toward him. "Diane and I want to thank you all for celebrating 35 years with us," he said warmly. "And we've decided, this milestone deserves more than one celebration." My mother beamed. "So next month, we're taking the family to Cabo San Lucas. 1 week at the resort, all expenses on us. Just the Suttons." Applause. Gasps. Ashley actually grabbed Brandon's arm and squealed. And I felt something lift in my chest. The family. That meant me. For once, I'd get to be included. I'd get to rest. I took 1 step forward, a small smile on my face, and said, "That sounds amazing. When do we leave?" The room went quiet in a way that wasn't comfortable. My father's expression shifted. My mother's smile stayed in place, but her eyes didn't. "Claire," my father said slowly, "you're not going." 40 pairs of eyes. "Somebody needs to stay with the kids," my mother added, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. "Ashley and Brandon need a real vacation. That means we need you here. But you don't have anything pulling you in another direction." Her voice was pleasant, firm. "It's just practical." I stood there in my plain black dress, with a dirty dessert plate in my hand, while 40 people watched my family tell me I wasn't really one of them. Some guests looked away. One woman leaned toward her husband and whispered something. I caught the words, "Poor thing. She must be used to it." I set down the plate. "Of course," I said. "I understand." I smiled the smile I'd been practicing for 34 years and excused myself to the kitchen. I don't know why I opened my mother's laptop that night. I was looking for a file I needed to email a client. My own laptop was at home, and she'd borrowed my printer cable a dozen times without asking. I figured she wouldn't mind. Her email was open in the browser. I should have looked away. I know I should have, but I saw my name in the subject line of a recent thread. Cabo. Claire situation. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I clicked. The thread was between my mother and Ashley, from 2 weeks before the party. My mother's message: "Let's just plan around Claire being here to watch the kids. She doesn't have anything going on. Honestly, it's almost like having a live-in nanny for free. She should be grateful we give her something to contribute to." Ashley's reply: 100%. "She'll feel useful. Kind of sad when you think about it, but honestly, it works out perfectly for us." I read it 3 times. Free nanny. Kind of sad. Works out perfectly for us. I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I cleared the history and closed the laptop. Then I sat alone in my mother's kitchen in the house where I grew up, and finally understood, with complete clarity, what I had always been to them. Not family, staff. And staff can quit. I drove home at midnight. My apartment was small, a one-bedroom in a complex that hadn't been updated since the 90s. Beige everything. Furniture I'd bought second-hand. My mother had called it depressing the one time she visited. But it was mine, the only place where I could breathe. I sat in the dark for a long time, then I picked up my phone and opened the email thread with James Holloway. I typed, "I'm ready to move forward. When can we meet?" Then I called Aunt Vera. She picked up on the second ring. Even though it was past midnight, I told her everything. The announcement, the 40 witnesses, the emails. My voice only cracked once. When I read her the words kind of sad. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Claire, I have a guest room above my studio. And the gallery? It's 20 minutes from me. Come to Santa Fe. I can't just..." "Yes, you can. The only person who's been stopping you your whole life is you. And them. But mostly you, for letting them." I hung up at 2 in the morning. By 6 a.m., I was packing 3 suitcases, my camera equipment, my laptop, the zip-up case that held my Sony. I left the world's greatest aunt mug Ashley had given me for Christmas last year on the counter. I left a note for my landlord with the key. Month-to-month lease, paid through February. Clean break. When I pulled away from the curb, I didn't look back. The drive from Columbus to Santa Fe takes about 22 hours. I split it over 4 days, stopping at roadside motels and diners where nobody knew my name. Somewhere in the Texas Panhandle, I pulled off at a rest stop and just sat there watching the sky turn every shade of amber and rose as the sun went down. It was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. I photographed it, my first shot as a free woman. On day 2, my phone lit up with texts from Ashley. I turned it back on, only for navigation. "Mom says if you're not back before we leave for Cabo, don't bother coming back at all." I read it once. Then I deleted it. She was already treating me like I didn't exist. At least now I'd exist somewhere else. Aunt Vera was standing on the front step of her studio when I pulled up at 7 in the evening, on day 4. Arms open, hair silver and wild, smelling like clay and coffee. "Welcome home," she said. And for the first time in my life, somewhere actually felt like it. Santa Fe is the kind of place that rewires you slowly. Terracotta buildings, big sky, the smell of piñon smoke in the morning air. Vera's Cafe, the fired cup, a ceramic studio with an espresso bar built in, sat on a quiet street near the historic plaza. Her pottery lined every shelf. Tourists wandered in expecting coffee and stayed for an hour. My room was upstairs, small, sun-drenched, with a view of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains that made me gasp the first morning I saw it. "Morning shift is yours," Vera told me over dinner that first night. 6 to noon. "After that, your time is yours." I worked the counter, learned the regulars' names, made pour-overs and warmed scones, and chatted with strangers who had no idea she'd left my entire life behind less than a week ago. By noon each day, I was back upstairs editing photographs. 3 days after I arrived, I met James Holloway. He wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined someone polished and intimidating. Instead, James was weathered and warm, in his 60s, with a linen shirt and reading glasses pushed up on his head. Desert Frame Gallery was beautiful. Wide windows, natural light, warm adobe walls. "Your series," he said, pulling up my portfolio on a large monitor, "has a kind of honesty that's rare. You're not documenting poverty or struggle as spectacle. You're documenting dignity, the dignity of women who aren't looked at." I didn't know what to say. He stopped on a photograph I'd taken 18 months ago. A woman in her 70s sitting alone at a diner counter, reading the newspaper, a cup of coffee in both hands. Something in her posture said she'd been sitting alone for a long time and had made her peace with it. "This one," James said quietly. "This is why I reached out." He turned to face me. "I'd like to offer you a solo exhibition, 12 to 15 pieces, opening in 8 weeks. We cover printing, framing, and marketing. You keep 60% of sales." My hands were shaking when I signed the contract. Not because of the terms, because I saw my name printed there in official type. Artist, Claire Sutton. For the first time in my life, a document existed that said my work had value. 8 weeks later, I stood in the center of Desert Frame Gallery and couldn't quite believe any of it was real. 14 of my photographs hung on warm adobe walls, each one printed large, framed simply, soft track lighting, a local folk guitarist in the corner, 60 guests moving through the space, collectors James had invited, local artists Vera knew, a journalist from Southwest Living magazine who had already filled half a notepad. I wore a deep rust-colored dress. My hair was down. I'd even put on earrings. Vera appeared at my elbow with a glass of sparkling water. "How do you feel?" "Like I might actually pass out," I said. "That's good. That means it's real." A small red dot appeared on the wall tag beside my diner photograph. The one James had loved. Before the opening had even been underway an hour, James pulled me aside. "That's Margaret Okafor. She collects seriously. She just purchased your centerpiece for $3,500. $3,500. For something I made in the dark, alone. The camera I bought second-hand, when my heart was broken." I was halfway through being introduced to the magazine journalist, when the gallery door opened, and my stomach dropped straight through the floor. Ashley and Brandon, still faintly tan from Cabo. Ashley was scanning the room with that expression I knew so well. Confusion, layered over the performance of confidence. She spotted me, and her face shifted into something that tried to be warmth. "Claire!" She crossed the room with her arms out like we were reuniting at an airport. "Oh my God. We were so worried about you." 60 guests turned to look. I kept my voice even. "Ashley, this is unexpected. We had to come. Mom tracked down the gallery. We flew in this morning." Her eyes were moving across the walls now, taking in the photographs, the price tags, the crowd. "You did all of this?" "I've been doing it for 3 years. I didn't know, you didn't ask." Brandon stepped forward, hands in his jacket pockets. "Nice space. Look, Wendy, Claire." He blinked. "Right, Claire. Sorry. Look, we need to talk about a practical matter. Ashley's pregnant again." A beat. "Congratulations," I said carefully. "Thank you." Ashley jumped in, grabbing my arm. "Claire, I really need you. Brandon's working insane hours right now. She's not great with the little ones for long stretches. Just need to know you're coming home. That's all." There it was. Not an apology. Not "I'm sorry we treated you like staff." Not "I'm sorry we called you free help in an email you weren't supposed to see." Just, "I need Ashley." My voice was quiet. "I'm in the middle of my opening night." I know. And honestly, this is really lovely." She waved a hand at my life's work. "We can figure out the details later. I just need to know she's not coming back." Vera's voice cut clean through the room. Ashley turned. "Vera, with all respect, this is family business." "Family business." Vera's tone was almost gentle. "You mean the family that didn't invite her on the anniversary trip? The family that called her free help in writing?" Ashley went pale. The room went very still. The journalist's pen was moving. A voice from nearby. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Margaret Okafor." Standing with her champagne, watching calmly. "I'm her sister," Ashley said. "And I'm the woman who just paid $3,500 for her photograph." Margaret didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I find it interesting that her family showed up tonight not to celebrate her, but to ask her to come home and babysit." Brandon opened his mouth, closed it. Something about Margaret's stillness clearly told him that his courtroom training wasn't going to help him here. I stepped forward into the center of my own exhibition. "Ashley," I said clearly enough that the room heard it, "I'm glad you're pregnant. I genuinely hope it goes well. But I am not coming back to Boston to be your childcare. Claire, I'm not asking you to be. You have the money for a nanny. 2 nannies, if you want. What you can't have is me, because I was never paid. I was never thanked. I was never even considered." I gestured to the photograph Margaret had purchased. "That piece just sold for $3,500. Tonight I've sold 4 pieces. My work is real. My life is real. And I won't walk away from it because you assumed I didn't have one." Silence. Then James started clapping. Vera joined him. Margaret raised her glass. One by one, the rest of the room followed. Ashley was crying now. Real tears, not the performative kind. Brandon stood very still. All the arguments gone out of him. "I hope your pregnancy is healthy," I said quietly. And I meant it. "I hope your kids are happy. But if you want me in your life, it has to look different than it did. It has to be equal." She nodded, mascara tracking down her cheek. They left through the side door. 20 minutes later, the main door opened again. My parents, my mother in her good wool coat, my father in a blazer, looking like he'd been somewhere he hadn't expected to end up. She walked through my gallery the same way she walked through every room she'd ever entered, like she owned it. Her eyes found me immediately. "Claire, we need to talk." You came all this way, I said evenly. Of course we did. You disappeared. You left your family when we needed you most, and now I find you here, celebrating my work, playing at being an artist while your sister is pregnant and struggling. Ashley isn't struggling. She's inconvenienced. My mother's jaw tightened. Don't be cruel. I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. I took a breath. You've been calling what I do nothing my whole life. You've made me feel like I had nothing to offer except my labor. You planned a family vacation and didn't invite me. And then you wrote an email. My mother's face flickered. Calling me free help. I pulled out my phone. I'd thought about whether to do this. I'd decided weeks ago that if the moment came, I would. I'll read it to you exactly as you wrote it. It's like having a live-in nanny for free. She should be grateful we give her something to contribute to. The gallery was completely silent. My father looked at the floor. Wendy. My mother caught herself. Claire. That was taken out of context. That was a private conversation. It was the truth. You wrote what you actually thought. I lowered my phone. I'm not sharing this to humiliate you. I'm sharing it so you understand why I left. You didn't see me as your daughter. You saw me as a resource. And I am done being a resource. The room held its breath. It was my father who finally spoke. He didn't defend her. He didn't argue. He just looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years, and said, quietly, "Your photographs are beautiful, Claire." And then he took my mother's arm and guided her toward the door. She didn't say another word. The gallery door closed with a soft, definitive click. Vera put her arm around me. You okay? I thought about it honestly. Yeah, I said. I really am. By the time the gallery closed that night, I had sold 9 of 14 photographs. Total sales, $16,200. My share, $9,720. More than I'd made in 4 months of freelance bookkeeping. James handed me the printout as the last guests left. Margaret wants to commission a piece for her home in Taos. She wants to see what you do with the high desert landscape. He handed me her assistant's card. And the magazine, he added. They're considering you for a feature. Cover, possibly. I walked home through the Santa Fe night air holding my copy of the contract and the transaction, printout and a business card, and the possibility of a magazine cover. Vera walked beside me, hands in her jacket pockets, not saying anything, because she didn't need to. 2 months later, my life had a new shape. Up at 5, coffee at the window, with the mountains turning pink in the early light. The cafe by 6, morning shift until noon. Then the studio I'd rented 3 blocks away. Editing equipment, a small printing station, the quiet work of making something real. The magazine article ran in November, my face on the cover next to a headline that made me have to sit down when I first saw it. The artist who learned to see herself. My inbox filled with messages from women I'd never met. Women who'd been the reliable one, the helper, the one who never got asked how she was doing. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for showing me it's possible. My family reached out eventually. Ashley texted after her daughter was born. A girl named Nora. She sent a photo. I sent a gift and a card. Kept it brief. My mother called twice. I didn't answer either time. The voicemails were variations on the same theme. When are you coming home? Have you gotten this out of your system? I deleted them. But my father surprised me. He sent an email. 3 sentences. Claire, I saw the magazine article. I'm proud of you. That one I kept. I'm sitting in my studio now, afternoon light coming through the window, the Sangre de Cristos in the distance, doing something extraordinary with the clouds. My Sony camera sits on the shelf, battered, loyal, still perfect. Next to it sits a newer body I bought with money I earned from my own work. Both matter. One reminded me to see, the other proved that people saw me back. My second exhibition opens in the spring. 15 new photographs. The working title is Thresholds. Images of edges and doorways, and the spaces between where you'd think, and where you're going. I think it might be my best work yet. Vera stops by most mornings. James checks in every week. The cafe regulars have started calling me the photographer. Not Ruth's niece. Not that girl who helps out. Just the photographer. I'm not rich. I'm not famous. But I am seen. And after 34 years of being invisible, in my own family, in my own life, even to myself, that turns out to be everything. If you're the one who always shows up early, stays late, and gets thanked last, or not at all, I want you to hear this. Your worth was never in your usefulness to other people. It was always there. It was always yours. Setting limits isn't betrayal. Walking away from people who exploit your love isn't abandonment. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop making yourself small enough to fit inside someone else's idea of who you should be. Build the thing you've been hiding. Take the photograph. Send the email. Pack the car. Let your life speak louder than any argument you could ever have. You deserve that. We all do. If this story stayed with you, I'd love to know, have you ever had to choose between your family and yourself? Tell me in the comments. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to Quiet Drama Stories for more powerful, true-to-life narratives every week.